businesses, entrepreneurs, also professionals, business support organizations, and service providers. And our community is here to support the e-learning process and also networking and collaboration between businesses from developing countries. I will add in the chat the link to the community, so please feel free to join and welcome on board for today's webinar.
Great, thank you. And now we actually want to hear from all of you who also just joined. We have prepared a few questions on Mentimeter. So for those who are new, please go to menti.com. 114546 is the code. You also see it now if we continue to the first question. So first is the easy one. We would like to know where you're joining us from today. So I give you a few seconds. I saw already in the chat it was very diverse, but let's see. India. We also go to Mentimeter. Kenya, Kisumu in Kenya. Kenya seems to be represented quite well. It's getting bigger and bigger. UAE, Uganda, some from Switzerland, South Africa. I guess that's our visa colleagues here. And also Indonesia. Nice. Lovely to see that. Mexico, I guess that's quite early for you in the day, so really welcome. And hopefully you get your morning coffee while getting a few inputs on investment readiness. So let's move on to the next question. Thank you for your input. And we are getting a bit creative today. So if you had unlimited budget for your business, how would you spend it? So excited to see this more creative task. Sorry, muted after COVID. It still didn't hit me. So people are very reasonable, I must say. If you had unlimited budget, you still go for the very good ones on marketing, research and development, scaling, buying inventory. I feel like that's quite a lot of very reasonable and back to the ground, really good actually spending habits you're having here. So lovely to see that you're not saying, I'm going to buy a yacht or any kind of like unnecessary spending. Loving this. And please continue to respond in this, invest in equipment. Really good answers there. So let's go on to the next one. We have another creative one. So if your business was a movie, which movie would it be? So I give you a few seconds to think about it. And then Wolf of Wall Street. So I see there's some sharks around in the Disney journey. The Lion King, Titanic. I hope this is on the love story, not so much on the sinking part. Otherwise, I wish you good recovery for your business, and maybe today will help you to get out of the Titanic moment. Iron Man and Game of Thrones. There, I'm also very curious. What is the backstory on this? There's a lot of different scenarios popping up in my mind in this regard. Cool. Thank you so much for taking part in this creative exercise. And let's move on now. Before we really dive into the next, please, into the masterclass today, we also have a oh, he left us basically. We have a young entrepreneur with us today he's back. Okay. But we wanted to know actually your status on the business journey. How would you describe your business journey in the audience while I start the discussion with Roy here. And then also Tashvir can later use this knowledge on where you are in an idea stage, early stage, scale stage, or you're already very big in business, like Wolf Street style, as an input for your masterclass. But back to you, or over to you, Roy. Thanks for joining today. Do you want to very shortly introduce yourself in like 2 sentences, who you are, what business you're having, and where you're based? Over to you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Roy Masiga Gakwo, and I work with Imuka Access. Imuka basically is an African term which means get up. And we facilitate business growth at scale, where we make use of technology to help entrepreneurs access support and get visible to various investors. We are currently piloting lightly in Uganda, and we recently also did a project with IFC to see if we can be able to explore other dynamics across. But the current focus is currently Uganda, so that we can refine the model to help businesses grow at scale. So in a nutshell, that is what I do. Thank you.
Perfect, and that fits perfectly to today's masterclass. So when you think about investment readiness, investor readiness, how would you define it, and why do you think is it so important for startups?
I'll approach it a bit differently. Most entrepreneurs feel that investment readiness is really about having the right documents. But our understanding of investor readiness is really the ability to demonstrate the ability to fit a specific investment criteria. Now, various investors have various criteria, which varies from one investor to another. And but typically, being investment ready requires you to have a viable business model. You need to have a good business model. The business should have good growth potential. The management of the team behind the business, the entrepreneur or the team that composes or nourishes that business, but also the market opportunity that the business is pursuing. Is it the market that the business is trying to be part of or solving? Those will naturally be, you will find most common decisions from investors are based on how the business model is, the growth potential, the management of the team, and the opportunity of the market for the business to grow. Yeah.
Perfect. And I think we're also really deep diving into that in a bit in our masterclass presentation. But maybe more personally on your side, what has been the journey on your end with your business on the fundraising experience? On the fundraising, could you share some experience and also some advice to your fellow entrepreneurs here today? What worked well, what maybe has not worked well? If you can, give us a little bit of some insights there.
Okay, so typically, I think what is important for entrepreneurs to understand is, one, when you are fundraising, you need to know which type of funding you are looking at. What type of funding? In broad categories, we have debt, which could be a loan, and equity, and different forms of that. But you need to understand which type of funding would be suitable for you. Then the ticket size, what amount of money are you looking at? Then what stage are you? I think there was a question to participants about the stage, which stage of the business they are in, and the business model. Depending on the business model that your business is pursuing, then it also determines the funds that you need to attract, and the use of funds. What do you need the funds for? Some people need the funds to buy capital investments, machinery. Some need for operating expenses. Some need a mix. So depending on also the use of funds, that defines who you are likely to engage with. Key insights in our experience when we on supporting entrepreneurs, which we are happy to share, is one thing that we have found very important is entrepreneurs need to build strong local networks and relations. The relations that you build, because the investment space, there's a lot of communication amongst investors, and they can recommend. So when you're in, when you build strong networks and relations, that could add some value to you. So for entrepreneurs who have been part of this session, which is allowing them to connect with others, I think that is a good start. Then there is a diverse funding landscape out there, and there are so many different avenues. So you will find, depending on the stage, you can explore angel investors or individuals who are high net worth. We have venture capital firms, as I said, also depending on the stage and where the level of the business. We have private equity, impact investors, development finance institutions, crowdfunding. We have grant opportunities, seeking to solve various problems, and also quite a number of governments have programs that are supporting entrepreneurs in various angles. So entrepreneurs can explore depending on what they are pursuing. Then there is also now currently a growing trend of impact investing, where you need to pay attention to environmental, social, and governance. Beyond generating financial returns, investors are keen to see that there's sensitivity towards the environmental and social aspect in play. It's not just really about making money, but how much impact can you equally can you leave some positive social impact within with what you do. The other bit that we found is very, very, very common, that you should expect as an entrepreneur as you engage potential investors in the fundraising process, is proof of concept. Depending on what you're trying to do you have proof of concept, and in some cases traction? So for those ones who sort of are developing software, then you may need an MVP, a minimum viable product that you can exhibit or showcase to show that you have actually made some steps. But if you can even go there as far as ensuring that customers are using their users, there are people who are experiencing the product or service, and beyond that, people are willing to pay or are paying for the product, then that even makes you more attractive to investors, because you have actually validated the market, which makes you very attractive to investors. The other bits that we've found, especially this is largely in Africa, especially the emerging markets, is for patient capital, the turnaround time, or the timeline of finalizing these negotiations takes a bit long, especially for equity, because most entrepreneurs need to really understand and appreciate the value of having somebody come on board and be part of the decision making. So you will find most of these decisions take a bit of time, especially for entrepreneurs in the emerging markets, when it comes to patient capital, because it's a union that each party needs to understand and appreciate before moving forward. And then there are also regulatory and legal considerations that entrepreneurs need to be aware of. You may have a very good innovation, but does it meet and fulfill the local regulatory and legal considerations? So that is something that entrepreneurs need to be aware of, because investors will equally get to know what are the regulatory and legal requirements within that geographical area that they're looking to invest prior to investing, so that they ensure that they limit their risk or their exposure.
Totally.
And then,
Maybe
finally, okay, so finally, we've seen local programs, local capacity building programs, really help entrepreneur understand and appreciate the process. So I'd certainly encourage entrepreneurs to be in such networks like community, our organization in Mocha, with programs that can be able to nurture and help them access or become investment ready and connect to various investor networks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Roy. And I think you tapped into quite a lot of different aspects, which are super important to take into consideration if you're actually investment ready yet or are in the process. And I'm sure our visa expert will dive into it in a minute as well. One last thing, Roy, if you have one single advice, like really just one, to your fellow entrepreneurs, what would it be?
So I would recommend resilience and be focused on your mission. Many times we are highly deviated by, there are some opportunities or grant opportunities that veer entrepreneurs off their goal or their mission to solve a problem. So I would
Oh, seems like we lost Roy in the second where he gave us very valuable advice on being focused and resilient. Ah, he's back. Maybe can you repeat your last sentence? We lost you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, you're back.
Yes, so I was emphasizing being focused and resilient. Very many early stage entrepreneurs, especially in Africa, we are always veered off by grant opportunities, which may be opportunities we can attract, but they are not aligned with our mission, the business mission. So many times, many businesses are veered off and end up actually losing the business model and the value proposition that they are offering. So resilience and focus on the mission that the business is trying to solve is key towards the direction they're trying to move. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Roy, for your time and also this valuable insight at the end and advice. So I want to give now the floor actually to our visa expert. And please let's lose the reactions for Roy to actually appreciate his insight and his recommendation. You should be able to see it. Yeah, I'm getting some hearts and some claps. Perfect. So thank you so much, Roy. And I give the floor now over to Tashbir for starting this masterclass and diving really a bit deeper into all the topics now which were addressed by Roy already. Tashbir, can you hear us and see us? Yes, perfect.
Good afternoon and good morning, everyone. My name is Tashbir. I'm based in Johannesburg, South Africa. I'm part of Visa Commercial Solutions. So the area of the business within South Africa that I look after is small business and commercial products. So all the way from small business to large corporates. And for us, it's very apparent that SMEs are the lifeblood of many economies. But in this day and age as well, there's lots of opportunities based on technology and digital. So with that also brings lots of opportunity for investment. So I'm going to share my screen and talk through a presentation. I'll put the video off just so that it helps with bandwidth. So you should be able to see my screen.
Yes, we can. And just before you start, one quick thing I forgot to mention. Everyone who has a question throughout the presentation or also to Roy, please put it in the Q&A button so we come back to it at the end of the session. And back to you, Tashbir.
Thank you. So this is just a notice of confidentiality and disclaimer, which is standard in all our visa presentations. But I thought maybe I could start. I'm just going to try and hide this. I'm not sure if you're seeing this.
We see only the slides. All good. We
okay,
only
perfect.
see, yeah.
Okay, so Visa has many programs and on-ramps to partnering. We've got a Visa Accelerator program where startups come and present their ideas, and it's varying amounts of prize money which is a global competition. It's held in each of our major regions, and then it's done at a global level. We've got Visa Developer Platform, where we also recognize that a lot of solutions come from fintechs and people looking to solve particular problems. And so developing APIs and providing that access to the technology is really important. We've got Visa FinTech Fast Track, which also helps fintechs navigate sort of the typical card programs. And from a visa perspective, it also means that there's a level of certification that we work with banks and financial institutions and other fintechs that also try and enable solutions. And in order to do that, you also need service providers that are certified and understand what Visa requires in terms of just connectivity and delivering seamless experiences. But irrespective on the size, the location, the language, the currency, ultimately it always comes down to, and the scale of the business, whether you're an early stage business or you well established, or you expanding into new markets. We always look at a few key things operations wise. If you're a retail or a consumer facing business, do you know your customer? Often we ask, who owns the customer? Because there's lots of service providers that don't own the customer. And then if something happens with that primary relationship, where does that leave you as the service provider? KYB is know your business. Similarly to, there's lots of legislation around actually knowing who's the shareholders of a business, looking at things like, anti-money laundering, sanction screening. PCI is payments card industry compliance. So there's lots of regulation around from an operations perspective. How robust is your operations, and that talks around how resilient are you to really changes in the market or even at an operational level, but also how are you, if you're looking to scale, are you in a position to do so that your operations allows you to. The ideas of opening and expanding into new markets is great, but then you also need to think about how do you will have, if you hire somebody in another market, how do you pay them? There may be there'll probably be different currencies. You need to register an entity in that country. So operations is really fundamental. Products and services is really key. We've seen a lot around software as a service and really around customer engagement and really understanding if you own a product or a service, but you don't own the customer, how do you actually service that customer? The idea of making sales is always great, but the reality is it always costs you more to acquire a new customer than to maintain or to on-sell into existing customers. So how do you engage with those customers? And then from an infrastructure perspective, how do you look at things like connectivity? In many countries we face things like access to bandwidth, access to electricity, those sort of things. So it's also around that reliability of service that is key, because often when you expand into other markets, there's also an expectation that you can provide a certain level of service. And if I move on to my next slide, and Roy touched on a few types of investors that we see across Africa, but it's true across the world. You've got venture capital firms, angel investors. You've also got traditional banks who walk a journey with small businesses, want to be an enabler for businesses, from extending credit to also funding investment and expansion. You've got corporates that often look to partner with and support small businesses and Admittedly, it's not that easy to get access to some of these corporates, but we've seen more of a corporate social responsibility to look to include more smaller suppliers. We've got private equity firms. You've got public and semi-public funders. So lots of government run programs around small business to promote entrepreneurship. It may be to specific sort of audiences, women-led businesses. Maybe it's around a specific something like agriculture. You've got impact investors, and then you've also got lots of incubators and accelerators. This could be from corporates, but often we see and trying to bring all of the players and trying to create opportunity and a network, because there's a lot from a coaching perspective. There's a lot of lessons to be learned from peers and mentors that incubators and accelerators look to provide access to. And then the last one, very quickly, is crowdfunding. We've seen lots of opportunities just to access fund around or funding around crowdfunding, and to just create some level of investment through a large group of investors. And those can go into the hundreds or the thousands, but it's about also getting that idea out there, and if more people believe in it, it also means and there's more access to opportunity. So that's a whistle-stop tour in terms of the types of investing. And as I mentioned, it's something from an African perspective, but it's not unique to South Africa. What I thought was really interesting when I was putting the content together was looking and hearing from one of those examples, being the venture capitalists. What do they look for in startups? Because their job is to evaluate hundreds, if not thousands, of small businesses, ideas at various stages in their own journey. And I thought it was really interesting in some of the key traits that this venture capitalist pointed out. The first one is around team. And I think it's really important, and this is true whether it's Visa or it's any venture capitalist. When you're looking at a team, a lot of, especially in early stage, it's usually the founder that does everything. It's he or she is the one-stop shop from a be it from operations, sales, marketing, inventory management, whatever it may be. If he or she needs to deliver, they'll be jumping into a vehicle and delivering a load, whatever it may be. But one of the key things is also understanding what sort of makeup do they have in terms of the rest of the company. Is it formalized? Is everybody who's involved in the team actually getting paid a salary? Or are they doing this sort of as a part-time, as as a friend, or doing it as a favor? Because that talks about the maturity. But I think the other one, which is really key, is usually when you look at a team, and I've seen this many times, that some startups or some business, the founder is, or you'll get somebody who's more the salesperson, the idea person. Someone else is stronger on the operation side, and that's the thing about the team. It doesn't mean that you lean on certain specialists. If it comes to talking about financials, there's maybe somebody who has more of a handle on what's the state of the business from a finance perspective. So that makeup of the team also gives any person looking at it a sense of confidence that actually there is a level of roles and responsibilities that will, if the business does grow, you're not creating a key man or key woman dependency on them, which is really key when it comes to scaling. The second one, and I mean, we all know in today's world, everything is driven by technology. I think 20 years ago, when I first started working, we always used to talk about information technology and business. And the reality is today, in many, many industries, you can't separate business and technology. It is one and the same thing. And technology is always advancing. We've seen now the buzzword today is all about artificial intelligence. We've seen so many things evolve and will continue to do so. So how do you stay ahead of the technology? Because there is also huge costs involved and investment. So making the right technology choice also, I mean, 10 years ago, the idea of the cloud scared everyone. Now it's, cloud native technology and applications are the default. So understanding technology, architecture, especially around information and risk, it's not just about getting in the latest and greatest technology. It's about understanding what is the risk, how do you protect data, what are you doing to protect the ecosystem. And in Visa, that's something that we hold as one of the key tenets in terms of technology. The third one is about the total addressable market. And I think for me, even in my journey in Visa, you can have a great idea and even internally, one of the first things is, do you actually understand the market and what is the opportunity? So that homework around opportunity sizing and knowing how you want to go about capturing that market, but also what does the journey look like? Who are your competitors? South Africa could be a big market for a particular product. Doesn't necessarily mean you can scale it to a neighboring country, for example. Do you know, and generally the total addressable market makes you also ask and answer questions that are really top of mind to any investor. The last one is around traction, or the second last one is around traction. There's a lot of competition. There's a lot of great ideas out there. There's a lot of information. If you go onto Google or LinkedIn and any social media, you see there's a lot of activity going on in the startup space, in the venture capital space. But how do you also, and Roy mentioned this, you can easily get distracted by, and leave the idea that you have to move on to the next because you believe that's where what the funder is looking for. Which means you then never really get the traction in terms of your idea, and it's about that follow through. So executing is a big part of traction because that also the results, the getting those what we call internally the runs on the board, being able to prove a concept or a particular solution means it also gets more exposure and more confidence for investors to invest more. And that's really important. And the last one, which tenacity is very similar to what Roy mentioned around resilience. The reality is it is tough. There's lots of challenges, and those challenges are at a macro level. It could be, wherever you are in the world. It could be geopolitical. It could be a host of challenges that exist. The tenacity to work through that to create more robust structures also is a key trait, because the reality is nothing that ever matters comes easy. It's about having that confidence and having that conviction to also follow through and stick to through the highs and the lows, because there will be many highs and lows in any funding or business journey. What I thought, which was something that I found really important, and this is something that I think it's no matter what product you have, there's a product market framework that I came across that I thought it's really a very useful tool to self-identify which path your company is on. The archetypes, and you'll see there's a link at the bottom, and there's also in the appendix, there's a diagnostic framework. So it has questions that you can ask and answer for your own business. But if you look at, even if you have a product and you look at the customer mindset in the market, you have the help me now. It may be very crowded. From a product perspective, there's lots of competition. You have to be different. You can't just be better. And it talks about the maturity of what and where you're trying to land a product. And the one that came to my mind when I was looking at this, like banking, for example, every bank, if you look at it, every bank's proposition looks exactly the same. It's only when you start seeing, well, actually, someone's telling you about how great their rewards program and what they got, and they got a free phone or a free iPad or whatever it is, that is the becomes the best in class. And the reality is then everyone plays catch up. So there's this continuous evolution. You get this hard fact where people just accept the way it is. No one really realizes there's a better way of doing something until someone like Uber, for example. Uber solved a transport problem, but no one ever went out and like, I mean, they were the first to say, okay, they're going to do something with a novel solution in that space. But up until then, everybody just said, well, you take a taxi and you wait. If you have to go somewhere and you're using public transport, you just wait for a bus. There isn't that ability to control that as example. And then the future vision, this is where it's something that, even as a concept, people will be like, yeah, right. Where does this? And the iPhone's a good example. When the iPhone started, nobody would have imagined that the likes of Nokia would have been displaced. iPhone or Apple was then famous for the iPod. Even the personal computer journey was already a forgotten memory. So things like that is really where that it's almost, you have to create the vision and you have to create that awareness of this is actually, it's not going to be well understood. It is what we call green fields, and the key is, no matter where your product fits or what market you're in, you need to be very clear in how to convey this, whether you're trying to stand out from the crowd, whether you're trying to land a completely new idea and be completely innovative. You have to be clear and understand exactly what's that winning ingredient, and how you position not just a product, but a value proposition. So I wanted to touch on this example, and it's a good example of how, if you look at many successful companies have also partnered with many startups, many family-owned businesses that evolved, and their product offering, their market fit also evolved over time. So Corning Glass was founded in 1851, and I want to just talk you through their journey from a first a family-owned business. But in 1879, Thomas Edison approached Corning to create the light bulb. All he needed was glass to encase the light bulb, and the light bulb as you know it today. I mean, in close on 150 years, the light bulb itself still looks very similar to the original light bulb. So this family-owned business, then they started producing light bulbs, and within a year, Corning then developed glass that was enabled to withstand dramatic temperature changes. So then they moved into railroad and signal lanterns. In the 1940s, when the world started evolving, radios were well entrenched in the world, but then TVs and producing the cathode tubes in TVs, they then started supplying the glass in terms of tubes. In the 1950s, they were the top supplier of the cathode ray tubes that you found in the TVs, and in effect, even in the 1970s or in the 60s, the reality is, you can see they went from light bulbs to railroad signals to TVs to even they started producing fiber optic cables in the 70s. So along the way, I didn't cover up the entire journey, but in the 1960s, they also, in trying to innovate, they also worked on strengthening glass for car windshields. So in South Africa, we call them windscreens, but that product never made it to market. Whatever they didn't really find a use case, so it wasn't a successful product. It just sat on a shelf. And fast forward 47 years later, the Apple and Steve Jobs was releasing the iPhone, and he approached Corning to come up with a glass that was super strong in 6 months. And they didn't have anything off the shelf, but when they looked in their archives, they actually found that that glass in the 1960s that they had developed for car windshields, which was completely unsuccessful, they never ever, it didn't go anywhere, it sat on a shelf, was actually the the answer to the iPhone screen as you know it today. So the first prototype of the iPhone was actually plastic, and Corning even had said it would have normally taken them 2 years to do research and development. They actually proposed that to Steve Jobs and the team as the solution, and that proposal was accepted. And that is commonly known as the Gorilla Glass. But the reason I thought it was really important to show this example is sometimes it's not about having the right product. There's external factors, there's market dynamics, there's use cases, and it's also about timing. Like this, I mean, I'm sure in the 1960s, if you had told somebody that this glass would be used on a mobile phone in almost half a century later, they wouldn't even know what was a mobile phone. But it gives a good example of sometimes when you come to, and on the previous slide we spoke about tenacity and being able to have that idea. It's about also not giving up, and doesn't mean that there's a fit now or there isn't a fit at this moment, doesn't mean that that opportunity is forever lost. There's lots of things, especially in the world of technology, and we've seen, and this is a good example of where a company that was so innovative around a simple thing like glass, which we interact with every single day. But to think that they started off as a light bulb, and now they were the biggest consumer. And I mean, it beyond 2007, I saw some of the investments that Apple, even in renewing their contracts, was into the hundreds and millions of dollars. And they are working to get even today into the strongest glass possible, that you can now drop from like a 4-story building. So that need to innovate, but also to recognize it's not always about in your control. It's also about external factors that help deliver. And that's why when we look at all of the factors from an investment, the more robust, the more clear you are on the product, the more, even at a later stage, the use case may emerge. So that's it from my presentation. I'll just show very quickly in the appendix as well is some of the key questions around product and market that I referenced, because I think it is very useful to look at a lens of from an external perspective on what someone else will judge you on. And there's many frameworks around. They're publicly available, but in the bottom you'll see a link, and have a read through because the use cases, the archetypes, because it isn't one size fits all. Nobody could ever imagine some of the innovation that's happened to date, and nobody's going to be able to predict it going forward. I'll stop there and maybe stop sharing my screen and go on to video, but that's my presentation for today.
Perfect, and thank you so much. Let's give everyone a big digital clap to Tashvir for this really great input we received. I already see also in the chat, wow, thank you. So really good presentation. Thank you so much for this. Now is really the time to ask your questions. So we have a couple in the Q&A, so I'm going to go through them. But please continue adding the questions while we go now into the Q&A part of this session. So one of the questions was, I want to understand the market requirement of sustainable products vis-a-vis other products. How ready is the buyer to buy these products at a premium? Is this a question one of you is comfortable in taking on?
So I'm happy to answer that. I think about knowing your product also means about knowing your price point. the reality is sometimes you don't want to compete on price. It's often what they call a race to zero. Sometimes, you look and say, that's the level of service that I'm going to guarantee, as an example, to say that's your unique, we call it USP. What is your unique selling proposition? Sometimes someone will pay more. And if you look at it like Uber is a good example. When you request to Uber, there's 5 or 6 different options. If you want luxury, you're going to pay more. But if luxury is more important than price, but if you really, it's only you traveling, then maybe you'll go with what the sort of single version, or if it's multiple. So I think it's about being clear around what's your unique selling proposition, and being cheaper doesn't mean it's better product. It's about knowing who's your target market for that solution, and that's why you see across the board there's always what we call a continuum of products.
Thanks. And I think that shows again how important is also the research part, to really make sure that your product, that you know who is your product for, right? Who is your target audience, and also really tailor it then accordingly. And that's also the step to actually approach investors and different funding mechanisms. First of all, you need to be able to convince someone else to actually buy the product and also invest into the product. And for that, you really have to be a really clear understanding of what it actually is, because if it's not clear for you, then who should someone else, how can they actually understand it, right? So I think really valid points here. Let me go to the next one. So someone is asking, he is a student entrepreneur, and I think maybe there we can give joint answers, and maybe Roy, you can also come in there. So he's a student entrepreneur, and I don't have a lot of networks, and I don't know a lot of people. And team is a major thing in a startup, also to attract investment. So what should I do?
All right. Thank you. It's a very valid question. I think it all starts with many times we start with an idea, but you need to create, should I say, a mastermind, or people that you feel can add value to your idea and can also connect you to various networks. So the fact that you are a student, you'll find whether it's a university or learning institution, there are various entrepreneurial programs, entrepreneurial challenges that you can be part of, participate, or at least get to connect within those networks. And as those networks, as you participate in those networks, you will over time systematically identify those you feel either you can work with, you can get mentors, you can find some of those programs have relevant support opportunities for you to refine your idea. And in so doing, you will find both potential co-founders and potential partners who could be strategic to actually help you take the idea to the next level. So, and being a learning institution, if the idea, for example, has a research component, most of the learning institutions also have access to research grants, which you can actually partner with some of the academia and submit that and get opportunity to refine the idea. So it really depends on the context and the idea. But yes, it just starts with opening up and being part of certain relevant networks that will help your idea materialize and actualize to the next level. Thank you.
Super valid, Roy, and I think it also depends on the location, right? It already starts with where you are. Like university is super easy to make connections, so you actually should find out who's pitch your ideas to your colleagues in class and be like, who else could be a great addition to my team? Really starting in the local context, and then as soon as you have the team, you could also see of like using other type of networks, maybe outside of your local context, your surrounding, going a little bit more international. And then these events you're joining today are a great start as well, like joining communities such as the Ye community or econ connect, to find fellow people who are actually connected via the same ideas or the same goals in life, right? But I think first of all, it's really important to look on the ground. Where are you? Who are like your immediate kind of like people and skill sets around you? And secondly, I just wanted to highlight, depending on the country, we also have, through the Yay community, chapters on the ground. So in different countries, we have networks of young entrepreneurs where you can actually go to meet and mingle with other fellow young entrepreneurs and then exchange and actually talk about all these different challenges you might face. And maybe you find also a great addition to your teams. But I see also Precious has had her microphone on, so over to you.
Well, you said what I wanted to talk about, like the ideas, sharing your ideas, and everybody has covered it. But maybe what I can add is what someone once said to me. I was like, usually you're afraid to share idea because you think someone is going to steal it, right? But an idea is an idea. People don't have or don't know how you are the implementation, how you're going to implement it. So don't be afraid to share your idea, to have someone provide you feedback. And in doing that, you find people with similar interests or who have had maybe a similar idea, but they didn't know how to take it forward. And then you expand your network. So just engage, go to pitch nights, look, research online. You're a student. What are the other schools in your area? What programs do they have? But just engage and go out there and engage with as many people as possible.
Yeah. So another question was more on the logistical side. I want to tell you we can share the slides and the recording with all of you after. So no worries. This will be coming your way. We have your email since you registered. So this will be coming. So maybe next one was more on ITC offers. Vera, are you with us? Then I would go get this question to you. What are the measures that ITC has put in place to overcome the challenges that startup face in the digital service system? Okay, I don't see her, but let me come in there. So we have quite a different tools and systems developed which you can actually join also for free. I'm putting this in the chat. Precious mentioned already some of the tools we are having. It is ranging from e-commerce readiness quiz to actually explore, are you ready to go digital, but also to find what is the best payment provider for your business. And of course, also being able to join these type of different masterclasses, mentorships we are offering as part of our various communities. So I put a link in the chat where you find specifically on e-commerce different tools and offers we are having. Good. Then maybe back to Tashvir. One question was, if you're not yet making money, what do you think? What is the traction? Sign-ups, active users, letter of intent? What can you use actually to really pitch your business well?
So I guess it also depends on where your business is in its stage. I guess the one of the things we think often is, from a Visa perspective, it's easy to get a card into a cardholder's hand. How do they spend? Because if you're not spending, that's the measure of, the what we call volume. So I think it's a case of, yes, you can go on a massive acquisition drive. You can go sign up, say you go to a student campus and you sign up 1,000 students. But if that product isn't a fit for them, you're not going to see what we call usage in whatever it may be. So yes, you're going to get a huge client base, but you're going to get lots of, in effect, dormant clients. So I think it depends on what is your use case. Is it around the number of clients? Is it the number of licenses? Is it the number of logons? You could have an application that You know, it's literally every time someone logs in, you know, you provide a service. It's more around how do you measure success, and then how do you track that? Because one of the key things, and I didn't touch on it on the presentation, but if you go to any of those startups, first you're going to claim, I've got 2 million users. The next thing they'll say, okay, show us, how do you onboard the users? How do you verify that? You know, in today's day and age, you have these bots that generate, you can actually, you've seen these sort of things that mimic people, but they're not real customers. So how do you also have the data? How can you prove for whatever proof point? Because to be honest, there are a lot of there's also bad actors and people who try and create the perception of you know, higher volumes based on a particular metric. So if it's log on and you have, you know, the number of downloads of an app as an example, you know, because that's what gets you higher sort of exposure on an app store, or it's those sort of things. But you need, and I think the key thing is having the data and being able to track that and look at, you know, how did month one look versus month two? Because often when you launch something, there's lots of excitement, but then what? It peters down. So being very clear on what's the metric that works in your industry for your solution, but how do you have the operations in place to also constantly manage it and track it? Because there's an old saying that what you don't track, you don't manage. So yeah, that's what I would say needs to be in place.
Yeah, I think super important also really making sure to collect this data, right? That is so important to maybe pivot also like the direction your business is going depending on the outcome of the data, and keep like analyzing over time what needs to be adjusted. So I think, yeah, it's not only valuable for potential investors to know, but also really for you as a business owner and manager to be able to adjust and really make your product something valuable for your customers, to make it also long lasting, right? That we don't end up as a Nokia at the end. Cool. I'm going on because we received quite a lot of questions and we are getting we're getting a bit tight on time. I like that someone liked my Nokia comment. Um, what is an advice? Oh no, how do we access the different visa programs to support entrepreneurs? So maybe you can give actually a few lines, Precious and Tashvia, what Visa has an offer in regards to entrepreneur support directly.
So I'll jump in. So some of the programs that we have, like this one that we're running, we do it through partnership. So we don't necessarily deal directly with the entrepreneurs, but we look for partnerships like ITC, who are supporting small businesses, and then they then support entrepreneurs. So you wouldn't find a program that's directly supporting us. And if you're asking about some of the initiatives that Tashvia talked about, in the beginning, such as our Visa Everywhere initiative, FinTech accelerator programs, we tend to have, call to action. We have specific cohorts. So when those are running, then there's a call to action. We put it on our website, on social media, so you can just keep an eye out. Or I see Melina has actually put some of our website there, so you can just keep an eye out on the website to see what programs are currently running. And we do, because we're in different markets, some of the programs might run at different times in Kenya, it will run at a different time than in South Africa or in Cote d'Ivoire or in Ethiopia. So you just need to keep an eye out on our websites, the social media platforms.
Thank you for this. Now we're getting a little bit more specific. Let's see to what extent we are actually the expert here. But one question was, what is an advice you have for a small scale plastic recycling startup that went to involve few community members, but the ownership is LLC? maybe you can clarify a little bit more what exactly you want to know. And then, unless Roy has a comment on this, I see you're unmuted.
Well, if they want to involve the community, there are various synergies. Obviously, the community would want to. The value proposition is it's an opportunity for them to dispose waste, and if they can collaborate and incentivize the collection of waste in a particular location, then they can synergize. I think we've seen different innovations where, for example, an entrepreneur exchanges a quantity of plastic in exchange of maybe a small stipend for the collectors. In some cases, so it can be an exchange of something valuable. That could be also an avenue of basically exchanging hygiene or public health for the collection of and disposal of the waste, which I have seen quite a number of entrepreneurs delve into collection in collaboration with the community, because they themselves cannot be able to move around, but you can incentivize and give them a small margin of what you will in bulk sell the wasted after you've either shredded and packaged. Usually there are some off-takers of the plastic.
Thank you so much, Roy. And we're getting close to our time limit. So I'm taking one more question, Tashvir, for you on your advice on the question on what differentiates between a product with no or low market fit versus a product that might have a long span of growth. Some products just take a very long time to get traction, but eventually they grow exponentially. Sometimes I believe entrepreneurs confuse these two.
So I think the key thing about, and that's where I mentioned around clarity, sometimes you have multiple products. If you go into a convenience store, the thing that gets you into the store every day is bread and milk, as an example. You know, that's a consumable, but there's 1,000 other products that you get exposed to. And it's a similar thing that it doesn't mean there are long sales cycles. When you start selling to corporates and things, it's, just to get onto a preferred supplier list takes a long time. But I think it's about knowing your market, and you can have different target markets for different product and different price points. But I think it's about being clear around what fits where, and not trying to, if you run out of product A, trying to push product A to market B, or to consumer because you have it, because that's where you kind of lose credibility. And it's about saying, actually, that's what it's intended for. And I think it's about more around being clear around that, whether it's multiple or singular. It's about having very clear lines of business and operations, and because that also builds confidence and trust from a market perspective. And there's a saying that I always like to quote: if you try and be everything to everyone, you'll be nothing to nobody. So that's the part you need to be very clear on, what you want to position, and be able to say no if you can't do something. Gets you more credibility than to just sell the wrong product, because then they're going to be like, when they go back and realize it was a bad fit, it's going to reflect badly, and you're probably not going to on-sell anything. So I think, and that's why the framework in the appendix is useful, and I like that. It's because you can answer that for yourself, for your own business, in your own market, in your own context, irrespective of whatever industry you're in.
Thank you so much. I think it's super important to also think about reputation, right, in your business journey. Also, yeah, taking the next steps, what kind of like traction did you had in the past? So thank you everyone for all these wonderful questions. We want to take the last 3 minutes of our time to actually provide you with some more insights. I mean, questions picked up on what offers do we have? How do I get to know more people? So it comes in handy that we have, as part of the community, always networking sessions, and we call them learn and connect session, where where we talk among other young entrepreneurs and exchange ideas, and also provide this network to connect with each other. So the next one actually comes up soon. So please join us. If you click on the QR code or scan the QR code, you can register, and we're looking forward to see you there. It's really more of a informal exchange among each other. So a peer-to-peer exchange. We're using also often breakout sessions. So that's one of the ideas. Next one is we're also speaking about green performance. So all of us know it is getting more and more important. We have to actually change quite a lot in this current world. So we speak about to actually how can you measure how well are you already doing in regards to sustainability and your environmental performance. So we have a new masterclass taking this on and guiding you through the different tools we're having. And also, this was not the last masterclass we're doing with Visa. So the next one is in May. So we are looking forward to see you there latest again. So there we dive into more on e-commerce experience and what is actually possible there. What is how does the future look like in this topic? So there we have it on the 30th of May at 2 p.m. again. And that's like the announcement part from my side. So I hope you really enjoyed the session today. I had a blast, and let's use really again one more time the reaction button for everyone to say thank you to all of these wonderful speakers today, and join us, connect with us on our different platforms to stay really up to date on all these different opportunities we are having. So Precious and Tashvir, Roy, thank you so much for your time today. It was really a pleasure, and I think a lot of people really learned a lot today. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Keep well.
Bye.
Bye.